Welcome to the Forge Your Future podcast, brought to you by East Central Educational Service Center, located in Newcastle, Indiana. We proudly provide service support and collaboration to 14 counties and 39 member districts.
At ECESC, we believe that students' strengths and interests are a blueprint to forging a future of success and impact, and we are on a journey to provide support and collaboration to schools as they implement career-connected learning for all students.
As part of this mission, we are here today to celebrate the amazing educators who help the students of East Central Indiana dream big dreams and achieve more than they thought possible.
Their work inspires us each day, and we want to lift up their stories and the stories of the students they are impacting and serving. Welcome to the Forge Your Future podcast. My name is Pat Haney, Executive Director of the East Central Educational Service Center. Co-hosting today is Lindsay Lovern, Instructional Specialist and Grant Coordinator here at ECESC. Hi, Lindsay. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Glad to be here.
Well, today is a big day. As we move into season 2, we are focused on elevating teacher voice throughout East Central Indiana. And we are thrilled to be joined today by Kayla Short, a 5th grade teacher at Randolph Eastern School Corporation. Kayla was nominated by her district to be interviewed on the podcast to highlight some innovative work being done with students and preparing them for vibrant futures. Kayla came highly recommended, and we are excited to connect with her and learn from her today. Welcome to the Forge Your Future podcast, Kayla.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I feel so special because I feel like I'm still a baby teacher, and to be highly recommended just feels really awesome. I've only been at Northside I'm going into my 2nd year, so it's pretty great to feel recognized already.
But we want to elevate all voices. So this season, which Pat is actually season 3.
Oh, right. Thank you. Season 3. See, time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But this season, we are going to be talking to all different types of educators with varied experiences, teaching different grade levels for different lengths of time. So we're very happy to have someone who's just starting out. So this is great. So Kayla, if you wouldn't mind just getting started with a little intro as to who you are, where you teach, maybe a little bit of your professional background, and then of course your why. Every teacher has their, statement of what brought them to the career and why they stay in it. So what's that for you?
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning of that question and work our way through it. So I am a 5th grade teacher at Northside Elementary. I'm going into my 2nd year teaching at Northside, but my 5th year teaching overall, which means that I have not been teaching forever. I actually started off my career years pursuing a leadership role in corporate America. I was an operations market manager for a Verizon retailer for many, many years, along with a store manager. I moved into a program manager role at Heritage Interactive Services, managing millions across the country. But I found that the work that I was doing, 1, took a lot of my time, and 2, it really didn't spark the passion in me that I was hoping it would. I'm very creative. I'm very artistic at times. I really enjoy being a kid at heart, and the corporate world really wouldn't allow me to do that. So why did I choose teaching to do that? Because I could have chose a lot of things, right? I chose teaching because I was that 5th grader with undiagnosed dyslexia that couldn't read. And my teacher at the time made me feel like it was all my fault and really made me hate school. And I decided that what better way to use my passion and artistic side than giving back to the students who remind me of myself almost every day.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Kayla. And I would love to know a little bit more. So having come from the corporate world and really charting a course in a completely different field. Tell us about your experience with a transition to teaching program and how that prepared you for the classroom, and also, any signs along the way that you really felt like you were headed in the right direction.
Man, transitioning to teaching was the most brutal year of my life. But I mean that in a very positive way. I did the ITF program, Indiana Teacher Fellowship. I was part of the 2021 cohort. There were, I think, like 50 in my class. So people who were transitioning into teaching from other careers. Uh, I have a master's degree from Purdue University in communication studies with a focus in global leadership. So I took that leadership part and I was like, surely I can apply that to a classroom. It can't be that much different. The reality is talking to kids is way different than talking to adults. Way different. But I learned that in a 6-week crash course teaching summer school to third graders at IPS. I learned a lot. And then I got my master's. The really awesome thing about ITF is in order to do the Transition to Teach program, it's a 2-year program. You don't get paid for it, but if you do the AmeriCorps service project along with it, AmeriCorps will actually help pay for your education part, because in Indiana, you have to have a degree and pass your praxis and all of that to actually become a licensed teacher. So it was really nice to have a program willing to help pay for that when I wasn't making money. But ITF did help me find a partner school that would work with them, knowing that I didn't have any real credentials. And for those 2 years, I worked at KIPP Indy, which is a public charter school. I loved it there. My first year, you could ask anybody, my mentor or anyone. My first year, I was not a good teacher at all. I have all of these great, big, bright ideas, but I didn't know how to implement any of them. And I feel like a lot of first year teachers run into that same problem where you're like, oh, surely if I do this, it'll help me get my engagement. And I would get like one piece of the puzzle, but the rest of the puzzle was just in disarray. And by my second year, I made it through boot camp and had my feet were all nice and on the ground steady, and I was ready to go.
That's great. One of the things that's really important, so you're at such a important part of your career, because a lot of research suggests that the teachers really decide within their first 5 years whether they're going to continue in education. And here at the Service Center, we run a new and beginning teacher support program. So I'm just curious, if there, as you launched into your career, either while you were going through ITF or even since. Talk about any key mentors or support people that have been instrumental in you finding that footing in the classroom, and then being at a place where you're excited to move forward in your career, impacting kids in the classroom.
Dr. Nancy Meyer Brown from Marian University is probably one of the main reasons I stuck with it. Transition to teaching was not easy. I really struggled my first year just making it through, and almost quit the program entirely because I was just like, I have 30 students. They all look at me like I don't know what I'm doing. They're second graders, so how am I intimidated by a bunch of second graders? And Nancy went out of her way. She made all of us call her Nance, but she went out of her way to give me tools, the positive affirmations that I needed, that, it would work out, that I just had to make it through. My first year teaching, I also had a really awesome support staff at my school. The operations manager at KIPP, her name is Brittany Gaither. She really made me feel great about being part of KIP, which was really nice. Even the like the head chief financial person of KIP like gave me a letter and was like, "You're doing great, keep going." And like it's crazy to think that those little moments are like what allowed me to stick with it. Not only that, but having a supportive spouse who's like, "You're doing something insane, but if it's going to make you happy, like, yeah, we'll try it." Um, by no means did my spouse have to stick with me, but they did, and I really feel like we have both benefited from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and being willing to get a little personal. It's not always easy to talk about our vulnerabilities, but I think anyone that's had that first year in the classroom, regardless of their pathway to teaching, will resonate with that idea of like, I wanted to make it great. And
Yeah.
I knew some things, but not all the things. And so part of our mission at the Service Center, and then specifically with this podcast, is talking about preparing students for vibrant futures, for futures of success and impact. And with a lot of the people that we speak to, we talk about like pathway opportunities, on ramps and off ramps, being flexible to find what it is that you're meant to do in the world. And you have an experience that really highlights that. What skills did you pick up in your first career that are benefiting you in your career as a teacher? What different types of experiences can you bring to your classroom that maybe not everyone can because they didn't take the same route as you?
I feel like it's an interesting question because I could give you the base answer and be like, yeah, I got really good organizational skills. I know how to talk to parents because I'm used to talking to adults. But I feel like those are so surface level to how like my previous career impacts my classroom. Because I make my students apply for classroom jobs. Like they have to fill out an application and go through an interview process. And I will fire them if they are missing assignments or if they're not doing their work. And I mean, it sounds so silly, but a lot of kids don't have interview experience until they're actually interviewing for a job. And I make my kids take it seriously. Um, and I that probably came from actually doing interviews while I worked at Verizon and like knowing what qualities I wanted to find in my future employees. I also feel that kids like knowing that you're coming from a genuine place. And so if I'm teaching them math, I'm going to be like, look, guys, you might not think you need these fractions, but here's how I actually use them in my past life. Here's how understanding decimals played a huge role in working as a cashier selling devices, and being able to bring those stories to the classroom shows my students that we're not just learning it to learn it. Like it actually has real world implications.
And you have credibility in that.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that is huge in their minds. I mean, my mind too, but in their mind.
That's great. No, that's great. And we always say working with students every day in the classroom, you are truly building the future. And you have better sense than really most anyone on what our future is going to look like. So based on your students and those fifth graders that you serve at Randolph Eastern, what can you tell us and our listeners about the leaders of the future?
Our future leaders are headstrong, stubborn, fiercely loyal. They know what they want and they're willing to go out of their way to get it. They also are hard to convince when they're wrong. Um, but they're bright, they're funny, they are loving and kind. It's a matter of giving them the space to be that way.
Say more about that. What do you mean giving them the space to be that way?
I So my students last year were doing a project with the librarian, and one of them, like, the librarian was just giving them all sorts of credit for being really well behaved and blah blah blah. And I say blah 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 because I don't feel like that's me. But my student responded with, "Well, Miss Short's just raising us right," and I don't feel like that's what I was doing. I feel like, yes, they're 10, but they're little people and they have opinions that can get hurt, and they truly, want to succeed. But the second you slap a label on them, you put them in a box, and they can only excel as wide as that box is. And so I have kids who have gotten in fights, but I'm not going to say that they're a bad kid because they made one bad choice. I've made millions of bad choices. It's how they come to school the next day that really impacts who they are. And I tell all of my students, I was like, you can make a bad choice. It's when you make that same bad choice repeatedly that it becomes part of who you are and the label that you are creating for yourself. Um, so I look at every kid, I take what past teachers say about them as like that teacher's experience with them, but I refuse to put a label on them until they have earned said label, so to speak. And then I encourage them to change the label because you can do that. I'm no longer a market manager or a program manager. I'm a fifth grade teacher. I changed that label.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. This is switching gears a little bit, but it really speaks to the work that we've been doing lately at the Service Center with Career Connected Learning. When we were setting up your interview, I noticed in your email signature you have your RIASEC codes, investigative, social, and enterprising. Did I get those right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm an ISE/A, depending on the day. Um, when I took the quiz, it was like, oh, yeah, you're definitely enterprising. And then the next day it was like, actually, you might be more artistic. So it flips. But yes, that is me.
Yeah, I think you've spoken to this a little bit with some of your other answers, but I want to give you the opportunity as well to say, how do you see those codes show up in your work with your students?
I think investigative is so important as a teacher. Most teachers have that S in their name somewhere or in their code somewhere, just because the social aspect is wanting to help others, being that bubbly person. And I feel like that's especially true if you're working in an elementary school. That S just shines. Investigative, though, you have to take almost like a sociological approach to the classroom, um, and look at the classroom as not only the individuals in it, but how each individual impacts the culture of our classroom and as our school. And the only way to get there is by truly diving in and getting to know your students, getting to know you, figuring out what makes you tick and what makes them tick, and putting all of that data together. So that is me. That I is very true. I love to help my kids. I will go out of my way to help my kids. Um, and then the artistic and enterprising part, I mean, me speaking today is enterprising. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and it's my understanding that pretty much all students at Northside, at least in the upper grades, know their RIASEC codes.
oh, they know
Would
it.
that would that
Kindergarten up.
perfect? Yeah, kindergarten on up, they know their RIASEC codes. How do you see that impact the students?
I, in a lot of different ways. One, we do a lot of career exploration. Each grade level looks at 6 different careers in a given school year, and we go out of our way to ask the students, like, is this something you would be interested in? What about this feels like you? I mean, we went through everything like choreographers, and we brought a choreographer in and had our students learn a dance. And the kids who were not artistic and didn't like that at all were like, this is not me. And it was nice for them to be able to put it into that category of like, oh, I know this isn't me because like my code even tells you this isn't me. It also helps influence the books that they want to read. We can use it in the library. My students have to read so many chapter books in a given quarter, and I can be like, well, if you're into realistic stuff, you might really like this book just because of the true nature of it. And I think all of that really helps them see like what they want to do in their future, but also make decisions in the here and now and be able to back up why they made that choice.
Absolutely. You're preaching to the choir. We absolutely love it.
Absolutely, Kayla. And I will say, I love that you talked about the here and the now as well as the future, because it really does become a tool that teachers can use to drive engagement. And I just read a blog post maybe last night where it was talking about the fact that it's I before C, that we have to understand ourselves before we can start to think about careers, and then think about how we can apply that, in the here and the now. What is engaging them academically? What clubs might they be interested in? What extracurriculars might they be interested in? And it just becomes a framework and a common language for everyone, to be leaning into those things that kind of spark them and cause them to lean forward. I'm curious if you have any like stories of kiddos and their RIASEC codes and seeing that spark in them and the way that impacted the way that they engaged in your classroom.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that I make my kids apply for classroom jobs. And one of the questions I ask them is like, why do you feel this would be a good fit for you? Base your answer off of your RISEC code. And so if one of the kids who applied to be my classroom cleaner, was more of the conventionalist, more of that C, and really liked the organization, really liked everything having its place. And that was her argument for being my classroom manager and making sure the room stayed clean. And I was like, that's a valid argument. Like, I'm check. There you go.
Yeah, you know your students so well. Like you named this kid's like 3 RIASEC codes. That's amazing. And I'm reflecting on how you're there's a lot of nuance in what you're trying to do with your students, because earlier in our conversation we were talking about your 5th graders as future workforce, and you also talked about the importance of data, and then we got into like really knowing your students, and you talked about how they're little people and growth mindset, and so you've got the human side as well. And that can be hard to like hold those two ideas together, right? I'm thinking, yeah, just like even in policy we deal a lot with that. Like, we need data points, we have metrics that we need to tackle. These students are like, pathways and pipelines and all of those things that are like, yes, important. Also, they're somebody's baby and humans with needs and emotions, just like you said. So I just really appreciate how you touched on like the full scope of that.
I feel like as a teacher, the easiest way that I have found to do that full scope is to have a very straightforward classroom theme. And it sounds crazy, but my entire theme is basketball. Basketball has 4 quarters. We have players, we have cheerleaders, we have fans, we have everything that our 5th grade classroom has can be represented in a basketball game. By the way, I don't love basketball. Somehow I ended up coaching it, but I don't even love basketball. I just like the metaphor of basketball.
Well, you know who does love basketball? Kat.
I love the metaphor. I'm a softball player. I love football, but basketball, it fit differently. So I actually have a scoreboard in my classroom, and every time our class average on a test is higher than like it's passing, so the whole more kids in our class passed it than failed it, we get a point on the scoreboard. And the kids learn to help each other out, to study, which is crazy, to do homework, to do these things. Because when I put a 1, or if I change that 1 to a 2 on the scoreboard saying that we failed a test and the other forces got a point, it shakes their world. And I hate it, but I love it at the same time, because they see the impact of their work in a number on the board. And it's the easiest way to show data, but it's also the easiest way for me to show, like, treat them as little people and to show them, like, hey, we are 1. We get 1 score at the end of this unit. And that's either going to be a passing score or a failing score. And so if you're disrupting the class, are we going to get a passing grade or a failing grade? Because we're not learning. And it's, I don't know, I feel like classroom culture allows you to really see that full scope, to treat them like individuals. But classroom management is huge, and it's not easy. I said it was easy, but it's not easy.
All right, Kayla, we're gonna wind up here. We've got a couple of like hot take questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the first one is, right off the top of your head, tell us something you wish everyone knew about teachers.
We spend a lot of our own money. If you see a teacher out there with a teacher wish list, help them out, because I promise they'll put it to good use.
I love that. That's great. And our traditional last question is, what are you recommending right now? What's something, it could be a book or blog, a show, a new habit, an ed tech tool, personal or professional. What do you want to tell your friends about?
I must have missed the drama of the classroom, because I am hooked on this show called The Gilded Age on HBO right now. And I've binge watched all 3 seasons, and I'm just like anticipating Sunday night so I can watch another one. It's all drama. It's literally all from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And it's just like New York and people with a lot of money who are not very nice to each other, and how having a lot of money apparently allowed you to be rude. And I find it wildly entertaining.
Well, you'll have to give us an update once the school year starts, if it's still entertaining or if it's like too stressful now that once you have the drama of the classroom again.
Yeah, like I said, I think I just like must have missed the drama, because I was like, I'm hooked on this drama.
An occasional trip to the late 1800s during the school year might be just what the doctor ordered, right?
You know what, maybe.
I love it. I love it. Well, Kayla, we know we talked about before we started recording, this is your last day of summer right now, and we are recording. And so thank you for taking the time to share with us about your work, your students, your school, and just kind of your passion for having an impact in our region. So we're really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you. And we wish you an absolutely wonderful, best school year ever.
Well, thank you so much. And honestly, anytime you guys want to talk, I got that communications major. I will come talk.
All right. I love it. Thank you, everyone. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Forge Your Future podcast. We hope that this glimpse into the bright future of East Central Indiana inspires you and brings you hope.
We have the privilege to work with these future makers every day and want to share their stories throughout Indiana and beyond.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it with your circle, and let's keep the conversation going.
You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on our website.
Until next time, remember that your strengths and interests are a blueprint to your future of success and impact.